Hey, welcome back to the repair shop. A little bit different video tonight. So I had a viewer question, a buddy of mine, down in Brazil actually. Getting trapped on stuff. And they have a 60. If you guys remember, some of my first videos with an all over 60. And the motor's blown up on it. And down in Brazil, there's no parts for these things. You know how it works. And so he was asking me, well, they got a 2.5 Chevy, a little 4-cylinder for it. And they want to figure out a way to swap it in, but they don't really have any of the parts. So they wanted to know how to make it work from, Chevy engine here, which this is a 70, this is not a 60, to your rear end. Now, granted, I don't have the 60 at the house right now. It's out at the farm. The 60 is a little different, so I'm going to try. So if this isn't, me wrenched or anything, I'm not going to share this in all the Oliver groups because it's a little different. It's more me just explaining what I would do and showing you how it works on a couple different Oliver setups. Now, on a 60, you're going to have your bell housing just like this, back your engine, and it's going to have your hole for your starter, and then that's going to be your first thing you're going to want to figure out. Because obviously, weirdly, your Chevy bolt pattern's not going to match up to your old Oliver transmission. So here's your options. If you can get, if you find, what I would look for, and I don't know where you got your 2.4 out of, but most Chevy stuff's the same. So if you find like a Chevy S10, there's something like that down there. Some of those S10 manual transmissions, if you can take that front bell housing off like on some of the older style stuff and find something with that same bolt pattern, you can take the bell housing off and that'll have the clutch setup in it. That might get you somewhere. The problem is you're going to need to have a clutch setup or bell housing that'll fit to the back of that engine. We're not even talking yet. We're going to get on the other stuff. We're talking just about driveline. Hit the clutch setup, that'll basically get you into a shaft. Because most tractors, like on this one, there's a shaft that just goes, and there's a little coupler right there, you see? And then that goes on, that's coupled to front of your transmission. I can't remember on the 60. I don't think it has that. I'll try and get, some pictures of the 60 soon, but just for the sake of it, and I don't know what you have left on what he has left on his, but you're gonna have to figure out a way to make that shaft where it's gonna come depending on what you have left. Maybe on that one you have the whole input shaft. Then you can figure out what you need to do for the spline, because again, the other issue is on that 60, it's got a shaft clutch cable. So like this clutch goes in on the side on the 70, but on a 60, there's a hole next to where your shaft comes out at, and your clutch lever literally is just a rod that goes right to that hole, and then it pushes in on your throwout bearing, and that's how it takes the clutch away. So I don't know what you have, depending on what you're starting with, if you have a bell housing and you have all your clutch stuff from the 60, you might be able to figure out a way to make some of that stuff work. Otherwise, you're going to have to do that all new. That's where it's going to start getting crazy. I said if you could come up with like an S10 bell housing that has the removable, where you can take that out, then you can just figure out what shaft you need and figure out a way to come out of that shaft into what the tractor shaft would be. And it might be different length too. It might be setting up somewhere farther too, because the other thing too, you're going to have to obviously figure out motor mounts, and that's luckily on an Oliver, the advantage is it's a full frame tractor. So as long as you can make the motor mounts fit in there, you should be able to drop whatever you want in there. Versus like on my this isn't so bad because you just have to make it fit whatever that transmission is, because see, you have frame rails on the Farmall, but your motor sits in there. So a little different. Let's go over to the Super here. Move some stuff around. So the Super, it's got that coupling too, and then it's got where you push this in, and that pushes against your throwout bearing. But so basically, most tractors are going to have some kind of a shaft. So if you were going to do a swap, what you'd have to do is you'd really have to come with a bell housing. I know it's not, that's probably going to be the hardest part, but starting off with a 2.5 Chevy engine, they call that the Iron Duke, shouldn't be too bad. Now, here's where things are going to be interesting. If you were trying to swap an automotive engine into my tractor, BIBSTER'S sort of ideas on it. So your second problem is going to be, and I should have left it on the other tractor, is your throttle setup, because your throttle on a tractor, they're all governed. So how a governor system works is, we'll come over here. And the governor on this tractor is actually up. It's up right in here, this general location. It's kind of in the front. But basically, your throttle shaft doesn't actually connect to your carburetor. It connects to the governor linkage, and it pulls against the governor, and then depending on engine speed and engine load is how much RPM you got. See, on a normal car engine, they don't have that. You're just connected directly to the throttle. See how on this side you can actually see it. No, I went to the other side. I should have stayed over here. So you can see your mechanism in there. So that's going to be another issue. Oh, look, I got my fuel line drip. Don't worry about it. Don't look at that. So that's going to be your other issue if you're swapping out, is depending on, I mean, obviously, I believe for the application that this guy's looking for, it's not necessarily going to be some, tractor pull. That's something they want to be able to use around the farm down there in Brazil. So it would, really depend. And a lot of those Iron Dukes, they're going to want to rev out. They're going to want to rev out fast, and this transmission is going to want to really handle. So you might just want to, keep an eye on that, keep trying, and that's where you can start to get into some fancy stuff like, working on your ignition, which I don't think you want to do. I wouldn't personally want to do it. But yeah, so I would say you're going to have to start with figuring out your bell housing issue. Because and back in the day, so when in tractor pulling history, when guys first started pulling tractors, they were putting gas engines in. And sometimes you'd see them where it'd be the gas engine, the automatic transmission behind that gas engine, and I've seen this before, and then going into your transmission. So then you have your 3 speeds on your gas engine, and then you have your V8. And that was some of the early modified stuff. But I don't think there's any automatic transmission, especially on a 60 where it's even narrow, it's tighter than what it is in here. This is a 70, where you're going to have that kind of room. But because that would be an option too, but you'd have to make things kind of a little bit different. So I'd say the biggest thing would definitely be the bell housing, and then obviously you're gonna do something about the motor mounts just to make it actually, which on this one it mounts. The transmission, it's mounted actually through the bell housing. So that's where you might have to build some brackets, and in the front it bolts in to the bottom of the bolster. There's a bolt for a bolt at the bottom there. So that would definitely be some extra work. But again, when you're placed like this guy where he's in Brazil and he's got no options, what are you gonna do? You got to come up with something. And that's the thing that's kind of neat about farmers is, we'll figure out an option even if we don't exactly know how it's gonna work. Huh. I think I had this on the top of the tractor when I was working on it. Oh, fun tool find. But they're gonna figure out an option. Like I said, on a 60, it's a little nicer because you're gonna have a shaft for your clutch that pushes that throw-up bearing, but then you have to find something that kind of matches that. So that's where your clutch is gonna be goofy. Your bell housing, if you don't have one found, that's gonna be goofy. We're not even getting into the issues of your clutch. All your shafts aren't gonna be. There's gonna be some differences there, so that's where it's gonna be kind of interesting and kind of fun. So I thought I'd kind of kick this video off with this little bit of a monologue, we'll say, for that, because he was asking me about what it kind of looked like, because they hadn't, most of their stuff was missing on the tractor. But yeah, so it's mostly just a shaft. Like I said, on the newer ones, on some, there's a coupler. Sometimes, I don't know, like on the 60, the coupler must have been farther back because I couldn't see it. But if there's a coupler, then all you have to do is make a shaft that can go between that back, so that whatever the coupler size is to whatever your clutch input, or obviously output shaft, I don't know what they call that exactly. And then it's a matter of making that your particular bell housing fit in, because you want to use your bell housing because you're going to want to use your starter. You're not good. The tractor starter won't work, and obviously you don't have it. So I'll keep you guys up to date because I think that's just kind of cool. That they're going to try and get some. They're going to try and get the 60. That other without doing this, that tractor would just be shoved off in the corner in Brazil and left there forever, scrapped, and And I think some of those, I know I've been reading in the Heart Power. I've read in the Heart Power magazine before on some of the exports that Oliver did back in the day. I know there was at one point there was some Olivers that were sent over. They were sent down. I believe it was down South America somewhere, and they were completely. They didn't have. They had a hydraulic starter. You would like pump it up like a jack, and then it would kick on, and then you would kick it on because they didn't want to have the climate was so humid. They were worried and the corrosive. They were worried about the wiring. So these tractors, there were these diesel. I don't know the model. I'd have to look it up. But they didn't have any electronics at all on them. They were 100%, but they were diesel, so they didn't have a hand, they didn't want to have a hand start because that was going to be too hard. So they had a hydraulic start. I always think that'd be kind of neat to find how some of that stuff worked, just to see how it, just see how it works. I think that's just something that is just kind of cool. But yeah, so I hope this kind of helps out for him, that he's trying to these kind of see. Like I said, it's hard to tell on these two because there's not as much room. We can kind of go over here and I can kind of show you a little bit more. So there's that coupler there. And you can figure out what spline that tooth is and get a shaft made or try and come up with something. But that'd be your best bet. Other than that, you're kind of going to have to do it all, kind of figure it out on your own. But we'll find something to do here. We'll bring you back. Well, that was... we'll call that viewer questions 1. If you guys have any odd tractor questions, I'm probably not going to be the best to answer them because, again, I've clearly said that I can be a moron about things. But I might be able to help you out or at least come up with an idea. But let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe. Thanks for checking it out. Everyone that's been checking it out this last couple weeks has been awesome. It's definitely made spending cold winter nights in the garage totally worth it. I had planned on... before I bought this heater, I wasn't going to be out here much this winter. And I'm probably out here 5 nights a week. So it's been a lot of fun. We're got to order an alternator for this thing. A little update on that. I'm deciding what I want to do. So on my farm haul, really classy. I got my broom up against the. I'll show you this real quick. I went with a 3-wire. I'm pretty sure because it was cheap. But on a 3-wire, see if your wire goes back, this is like what's feeding it. And then this is basically, if I want to remember right, I'm using, I think this is actually, let me see how this works. So I think this is the wire that goes back to the light. There's it's actually a license plate light on the, up there, right there. Basically, it tells it when it's charging or not because it has to rev up. Once it revs up and starts to run, but I'm going to go with the 1 wire, I think, on the Oliver. So I'll wire it up a little differently. But this is one I was talking about. It's got that ballast resistor here because without this ballast resistor, it won't, basically, it'll feed, this thing will just feed that. When you shut it off, it won't shut off. So that's why this one's run a little bit different. So. And this is kind of my first tractor wiring job, so I was kind of a hack at it at the time. I really, this is, how's that not, it charges, I guess. But yeah, so we'll let you go from here. Have a great Wednesday. Probably won't see you guys till probably Friday night, so if you got any questions, let me know. If you like this style video, let me know too. Just something a little bit different I thought I'd try out. Hopefully helped out the guy. If not, just kind of spitballing ideas about what you can do with your tractor. So we'll see you on the next one. Bye.